Angelo has over 35 years of progressively responsible managerial experience in diverse industries for companies ranging in sizes from small consultant firms to multinational financial service companies. Angelo has proven track record for developing and building effective internal outsourced distributed teams and is a turnaround specialist in operations and customer service. Angelo is a published and multi-award winning executive that currently serves as a chairman of the supervisory committee for a federal credit union based in Northeast USA and is an executive consultant and banking strategist for FIS Global. Angelo has held multiple board-level leadership roles and was recently president and CEO of an independent nonprofit community foundation. He also serves as a senior vice president, chief information and bank operations officer for Sun Bank, a $4 billion financial service company based in New Jersey. And today, Angelo is going to talk to us about cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I appreciate the reading the bio, and thank you, everyone, for listening and signing in this morning. Very much appreciated. And without any further ado, we'll just get right straight into it. I'm with FIS Global. I'm a consultant and a strategist for the Northeast. I focus in on financial institutions, predominantly credit unions, that are below the $1 billion range, and helping those organizations for all of their managed IT and technology needs. So I like to very succinctly say I'm able to help credit unions from the mouse up to the core and everything in between. Because typically the core is handled by your core provider and so forth. So we're going to talk a little bit about best practices from a managed IT and security perspective. I'll just flip to the next screen and we'll just kind of open it up with what the landscape looks like today, right? So believe it or not, there are 500,000, 500,000 attack attempts every minute. And that's astronomical. I can't even do the math in my head that fast on what that is every hour, every day, every week, every month. The numbers are astronomical. And we probably all heard the news just recently. And you don't have to attack an organization by connecting into their systems. Cybersecurity also is how the employees react to social engineering. Twitter and 150 very high-level individuals had their Twitter accounts hacked and tried to what I would call spearfish as it relates to dollars and things of that nature. So talking about dollars, 26 trillion in estimated cost of cybercrime will happen in 2021. It's about 5 trillion. It's trillion in regards to 2020. And with our pandemic, we have seen an uptick of that fraud activity because when there's chaos, there's opportunity. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on. But there's 20 billion connected devices here as we sit in 2020. If there is about 7 billion people in our population across the globe, it's almost 3 connected devices per person. That's pretty amazing. But just think of our lives. You know, we can think of our TVs, which is an endpoint. Every single point of sale terminal that's out there that you swipe a credit card. Every PC, every cell phone, every iPad, they're all connected type of devices from a Wi-Fi perspective. So we know that there's a ton of devices out there across the globe. One thing, and I mentioned this a little bit before, that the common denominator here is social engineering. That is a key determining factor because in a lot of cases, just like in our financial institutions, that sometimes our people are the most vulnerable. So we have to make sure that we're educating our teams, our people within our institutions. And sometimes we lack a little bit of that because we're just so busy on a consistent basis. very important that we train and educate our folks that work in our organization, because that's how the bad guys got into Twitter, was through social engineering. And we're able to kind of backtrack from that standpoint.
Now, do you know what size credit union is usually targeted by these hackers?
Yes, great question. 60% of the attempts from a hacking perspective are hit to small, medium-sized businesses. So, and that's across multiple industries. But all of us typically that are on this call today or listening in are in that small, medium business variety. So more than half the time, someone is trying to, what I like to call, jiggle that handle, right? If it's locked and they have to go through a lot of activity to come in and enter, then they're going to move on to some other small, medium business. And that's what you want self-servingly from an organizational perspective. So that's a big number as it relates to small, medium-sized businesses from that standpoint. So thank you. Great question, Christine.
And how long does it take for a breach to actually happen? Once somebody gets in, is it quick or is it take a little while?
It's seconds, Christine, that once they get in, they're able to get through one door, one layer, and then move on to another. And that's a great segue into the next slide that we have. And it's our layered security approach, right? So how do we, as organizations, keep the bad guys out, but the actual data flow and access into the organization to where it's appropriate, right? The data, which sits right straight here in the middle of your screen that I'm circling, that's typically the information that the bad guys want to get to, but also it's the information that your teams want to get to as well. So you have to have that proper access management, but you also have to keep this arrow out. So really it's a dual arrow, right? So as people come in, you want to be able to connect through these different layers. So there's the perimeter, that's where your firewalls sit, your VPNs, your virtual private networks, where a lot of us are working from home right now, having to dial into our organizations through a virtual private network. It creates a tunnel to allow you to get to the information, to that data. But there's multiple layers. So there's that network. So not only do you have the layer as it relates to the perimeter, keeping the bad guys out, but also letting workers into the organization, you have your network layer as well. This layer here is where people try to flood the organization to try to get in. We call that intrusion, and we detect those intrusions from that standpoint. We try to ensure that there's all the vulnerabilities within your layers are buttoned up and tightened. Access control, ensuring that you have the proper password lengths and so forth. We've seen those password lengths grow. Some organizations, you have to have multiple levels of characters, from uppercase to lowercase to numbers to symbols, phrases. You can't have they have restricted names like password. Years ago, you wanted to hack into an organization, just use password 123 or password at 123, and just try to go from there. Everyone's password was password, so restricts commonly used type of words that people use and leverage. So you'll see that your host, that's where your virus protection sits. Your vulnerability assessments are created here. Your access control, again, just from a core standpoint, right? So internally, we have a lot of best practices as it relates to what level of individual, what job function of individual can access certain data. So your tellers have different access control and access to your core data than a IT person or the head of consumer banking or head of consumer organization within your credit union. So those type of access controls are important as well. So your access from a teller is different from a lender, and so forth and so on. We've built a lot of those best practices. So this layering approach, it's about not only the technology, but the practices that you have within your organization to ensure that your data, that crown jewel of your organization, that data is protected. And you see that it's in the most interlayer of the this approach, as what we call at FIS the depth in defense, defense in depth, as we like to call it, where there's multiple layers, multiple process. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the next screen. Before I move on, I want to see if there was any other questions. I see Carol has joined us. Good morning, Carol. And see if there were any questions before I move on to the next screen. Great.
Nope.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Christine. So we talked a little bit about, and we've all seen that our organizations, there's a lot of strategists and consultants talked about people, process, technology. We like to call it people, process, tools. It's the same concept from that standpoint, is that they all have a certain aspect of building and protecting your data internally from a cybersecurity and a security approach, right? So ensuring that your people, or do you have the talent, the best talent from a security perspective? And we're just focusing on security here. And that talent from a security perspective is very, very hard to come by. And I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But the important thing is that organizations that are technology organizations like FIS have multiple layers of people, not only in the United States, but around the globe, because security is a 24/7, 365. When are the bad guys going to try to get into your organization? In the middle of the night, on holidays, on weekends. That's when there's maybe a little bit of not eyes on, like we like to call eyes on glass, is someone monitoring your environment 24/7, 365, every single moment of the day, and ensuring that you have those skills available, or partner with an organization that has those skills. So that's important. The processes, we talked a little bit about that. Again, 24/7 monitoring, ensure that you have the proper forensics, the administration, audit and reporting plays a huge part of this to ensure that there's a fresh set of eyes that really kind of focus in on technology auditing, technology management, understanding what the best practices of today and today's environment is. Very, very important from there. Are we adhering to the proper change management that we have in our organizations? Do we have the proper back out process during a change? So if there's a network upgrade that's happening, ensuring that it's pre-planned and managed, is that, okay, here's what it's going to look like when we're complete. If we can't get there, what is the back out plan for that? That's just as important as the pre-planning of implementing technology. All that plays a part as it relates to technology and cybersecurity. Because I'll mention a few times, and I mentioned it before, chaos equals opportunity for these folks. So it's very important. And of course, the tools. There's a ton of tools out there, from with firewalls and unified threat management to SIM tools, all working in concert together. And that's the key. There's plenty of tools out there, a lot of tools that allow us to help us manage our environment. And I use those words, help us manage our environment. They don't manage the environment. We do. The people do. The processes. And then the tools help us manage our environment, right? That I like to leverage tools like It's a pencil with an eraser, right? It's a tool to allow us. Pencil allows us to write and erase our mistakes and so forth. Same thing with our tools, is that it allows us to leverage that for our cybersecurity needs. But really, the key to that is the process and the people. Tools is down at the bottom for a reason. The people, the process, the tools. So when you're partnering with an organization or you're managing your own cybersecurity, ensuring that you have the proper tools in place. I'm not going to go around every slice of this large pizza pie that we have with different tools, but there's web defacement monitoring to brand protection to ensure that the bad guys aren't trying to get into your websites and sabotage your brand as it relates to your environment, ensuring that there's not just a letter missing out of your name and someone has that as a website somewhere else trying to bring clients in underneath a separate name. All of that ensures your brand protection. Is your website defaced? Is an organization leveraging your environment for their own needs as it relates to bringing accounts in and so forth? There are organizations that do that. Ensure that you have the proper patches all across the environment, from the network to security, to your PCs, to your servers, and then of course to your host environment, that all work in concert together. So this wheel is meant to be more generic. Normally what I have is FIS managed security in this outer rim, protecting and helping organizations deliver all these different pieces as it relates to the different layers of security. And then the credit union name is sitting here in the middle, right? There was too many that would be listening and so forth. So I could put all the logos in there. But really what we strive to do is put that logo in here. So you're protected with all these different slices of different cybersecurity and managing that accordingly, right? So again, our defense in depth, the tools are managed from a best practice perspective, and that it's an integrated approach to ensure that your environment is as tight and as secure as possible. Make sense? Okay, I'm going to move to the next screen now. Just as important that organizations have not only the organization helping them deliver these slices of the pie, because not one credit union or organization would be able to have all the skills or even and have the budgets for all of that, and then have that perimeter and that defense in depth. That's why credit unions leverage organizations like FIS to help do that. But just as important is that organization that you're partnering with have partnerships with industry and our government, because every single day someone is trying to attack our country as a whole. The Department of Homeland Security, that was set up about 20 years ago at this point, in a big way to help not only from a terroristic perspective, but a cyber terrorist attack as well. We at FIS sit with the Department of Homeland Security, understanding where vulnerabilities and attacks are coming at us from a financial perspective. The worldwide terrorist folks, as well as the bad guys across the globe, and it's just not here in the U.S. They're going to follow the money, and the money is with our financial sector. So the biggest attack set is the financial services industry as a whole. So that's why we sit with the Department of Homeland Security to understand where those attacks are coming from and be proactive from that standpoint. And the same reasons why we sit on the financial services ISAC, which is an industry security consortium, the FSSCC, which is a section of our financial services roundtable, along with BITS, our American Transaction Processing Organization that we sit with. And one of the things we're very proud of is that we actually have FIS employees that are paid by FIS that sit in Redmond, Washington. Now, maybe it's not Redmond, maybe it's a suburb or something like that, but we sit at Microsoft with Microsoft and work with their security teams and try to understand what the next cybercrime center is. Ensure that your security organization has these type of partnerships, because as you know, and I'll put my NCUA hat on. So FIS is regulated by all the regulators out there, all the, you know, every single acronym with every single letter of our alphabet. We're with the OCC, the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, and NACUSAC, NCUA, all regulate and are in FIS on a consistent basis. So we are regulated like you are regulated. And that's very important, because when the regulators come in and review and audit you from an NCUA perspective, it's very important to understand that they're auditing you to ensure that you have the proper security and cyber environment buttoned down and tightened up, and have the right best practices. But if the organizations that you're doing business with are not used to dealing with financial services firms, do not have the same level of scrutiny from a regulatory perspective, it's your responsibility to do that, right? So, and they're going to look at that very, very closely, and actually they're going to do that more and more, especially as we get through our pandemic and so forth. So I know I'm getting a little tight on time, but I really just wanted to quickly discuss cloud adoption and cloud apps. Many of our financial institutions that we manage, we have 1,200 financial institutions, many credit unions that we had in our client base just from a managed technology perspective. Almost 200 have some level of our security services as it relates to our services. But the key thing is how you're managing and doing your vendor due diligence and risk assessments of your cloud providers. So I'll just leave one thought with this slide, is that just because you move an application into the cloud does not remove the oversight and the need to ensure the proper best practices as it relates to cybersecurity. Those things actually become a little bit more of a challenge, but that oversight is definitely necessary from that perspective. So cybersecurity, cybercrime, cyber terrorism, ensuring that you have the proper processes that you have within your organization. That just moves outside your organization if an application is being managed outside your organization. It's a great thing. We should do it to ensure that we have the proper expense control from that perspective and so forth. But you just don't wash your hands of the need from a security perspective. You still have the responsibility. So I'll leave that from a best practice approach with this slide. I felt the need to make sure that we had at least a slide in regards to the pandemic that we're all are living with right now. Again, chaos breeds opportunity. We have at FIS, that's been vetted by the FDIC, the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, the FDIC, and many others. Our vendor risk management program and portal, I think those things go in concert with cybersecurity. So what we're doing from a risk perspective, what runs dovetail with our security, ensuring that we have the proper business continuity planning, ensuring that our vendor risk management is being adhered to, and vendor risk management also sits here as well. All those things work in concert together, and all those activities from a best practice approach ensures that your organization is on the right track, again, from a best practice approach. So how to make sure that we had a pandemic concern slide. It would be irresponsible not to have that in there and talk a little bit about that. So I'll leave you with this last slide, is that how FIS manages our security. You see that as a pillar in the 5 major services that we have, from data center services all the way up to managed security services. And then our 6th service really just encompasses every single one. We have, like I said, about 170 firms that fully leverage a managed IT service from FIS fully. And then over 1,100, almost 1,200 takes some level of slice of this, of our pillars. So I'll make sure that everyone on the call or is listening in will receive this slide deck, so you can use that as a tool from a reviewing perspective. This slide is really probably I spent the most time on it, the most interesting, and really will help an organization with their best practices.
That is, Angelo. I mean, I found it very interesting, and it is crazy, the very beginning slide that you showed us about how many people, how many attacks happen every minute, and the cost.
Amazing.
I mean, I knew the cost was up there for cybercrimes, but $6 trillion is ridiculous.
Yes.
And
yes.
we really need to be prepared as a credit union to ensure the safety for our members.
Yeah. Just think about what that number represents, right? You know, we're all probably neck deep in the pandemic, and the numbers in regards to trillions of dollars that have propped up our country during this lockdown, right?
Right.
You know,
right.
From PPP loans to unemployment to
Yep.
the almost 20% of the population that's out of work and so forth, has not even approached $6 trillion.
Right.
Right. So think about that from a number perspective. It's huge. But I'm glad you went back to that screen, Christine.
Nice. Well, thank you. And again, this is recorded because we have people on vacation. We have people that are busy with members. And so I will be sharing this, the PowerPoint and the conference call with them. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Christine. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you too. All right. Bye-bye.